I trained for 6 months, I hit every split, I did everything right. And at mile 20, my marathon exposed a truth I wasn't ready to face. The pace I believed in was never actually mine. Mile 20 is where I learned the truth. Not about pain, not about grit. I expected those, I trained for those. What I wasn't prepared for was the moment my body quietly revolted against a number I had worshipped for 6 months. The watch said I was right on pace. The splits were perfect. The math was clean. Sub 4 hours. A goal that sounded strong when I said it out loud. A pace that felt respectable, impressive, worth the sacrifice. And then, without warning, my legs stopped responding the way they had in training. My breathing turned sharp and chaotic. My heart rate climbed even though my pace hadn't changed. It felt like the marathon reached inside me and flipped a switch I didn't know existed. That's when the thought hit me like a punch. What if this pace was never mine to begin with? I didn't pull a muscle. I didn't cramp. I simply ran out of something deeper. Efficiency, durability, truth. If you've ever hit that invisible wall and wondered what really happened, you're in the right place. Subscribe and stay with me, because what I discovered after that race completely changed how I understand marathon pace, and it might change yours too. That question stayed with me long after the finish line medals were handed out. Because when I replayed the race in my head, I realized something uncomfortable. I never actually earned that pace. I selected it. Like most runners, I had fallen in love with a number before I understood what it required. Sub 4, sub 3, 30 clean. Round milestones that sound powerful when you say them out loud. They become part of your identity before they ever become part of your physiology. I told myself it was ambition. But if I'm honest, it was ego dressed up as confidence. I had plugged a recent 5K into an online calculator, watched it spit out a marathon prediction, and treated that output like a verdict. It felt scientific, objective, almost official. But deep down, I never stopped to ask whether that prediction reflected my durability, my training load, my sleep, my stress, my actual life. I simply liked what it said about me. And that's the dangerous myth. We think choosing a marathon pace is an act of belief, but belief doesn't change your metabolism. It doesn't expand your aerobic base. It doesn't rewrite your fatigue curve. Somewhere along the way, I confused desire with data, and that confusion cost me 6.2 very long miles. Why the 5K calculator lied to me? Once I admitted that desire had replaced data, I had to confront the tool I trusted most, the race pace calculator. On paper, it made perfect sense I'd run a strong 5K. I felt fast. The algorithm took my time, applied its formula, and handed me a marathon prediction that matched the version of myself I wanted to believe in. It felt logical, efficient, scientific. But the more I studied it, the more I realized it was solving the wrong equation. A 5K measures how big your engine is, your VO2 max, your top-end oxygen processing power. It tells you how hard you can push for 20 minutes when everything is on fire. A marathon doesn't ask that question. It asks something far more patient and far more brutal. How efficiently can you operate for 3 hours without falling apart? Speed is a ceiling. Endurance is a structure. The calculator assumed my fatigue curve looked like an elite runner's ectomic. It assumed my aerobic base, my mileage, my recovery habits, and my efficiency were already built. It didn't know the truth about my training or my weaknesses. It just processed a number and projected confidence. And I believed it, because it told me what I wanted to hear. So I stopped asking what the calculator predicted and started asking what actually determines marathon pace in the first place. What I found was humbling. Marathon pace isn't a single trait. It's the intersection of 3 physiological realities. First, VO2 max. That's your engine size, your ceiling. It defines the upper boundary of what's possible, but it doesn't promise you can live near it for long. I used to obsess over making that number bigger, thinking speed would solve everything. Then there's lactate threshold, the rev limiter. This is the percentage of your engine you can sustainably use before your system floods and forces you to slow down. Unlike raw VO2 max, this is highly trainable, and for the marathon, it matters far more than bragging rights over a short race. Finally, the running economy. This one changed how I see every stride. It's not just how strong you are, but how efficiently you convert oxygen into forward motionless. 2 runners can share the same engine and threshold, but if one burns more fuel per mile, The difference shows up late in the race. When I saw these three variables clearly, I understood something profound. Pace isn't ambition. It's biology expressed in motion. Once I understood that pace is simply biology expressed in motion, I realized something else. If it's biological, it can't be guessed. It has to be tested. That thought shifted everything for me. I stopped treating my training like a checklist of miles and started seeing it as an investigation. Instead of asking, how do I force myself to hold this pace? I began asking, what pace does my current physiology actually support? That question felt different. Calmer, more honest. I had been running long runs just to survive them, stacking mileage like proof of commitment. But commitment isn't clarity. You can be incredibly dedicated and still be misaligned. I needed evidence, not effort. So I made a decision that felt both simple and uncomfortable. I would stop declaring my marathon pace in advance and start designing workouts that would expose it. No fantasy, no motivational self-talk, just measurable reality. 2 specific tests became the backbone of that approach. One would challenge my aerobic durability in a race setting. The other would force my body to reveal whether a proposed pace was sustainable under fatigue. For the first time, I wasn't chasing a number, I was hunting the truth behind it. The first test sounded simple on paper, but it demanded complete honesty from me. 4 to 6 weeks before my next marathon, I signed up for a half marathon with one clear intention. No pacing strategy based on ego. No holding back to save legs. No treating it like a long tempo. I ran it as if it were the only race that mattered. Because in a way, it was. That half marathon became a mirror reminder. It reflected not what I hoped I could do for 26.2 miles, but what my aerobic system could sustain for just over an hour under real pressure. When I crossed that finish line, exhausted and emptied out, I finally had something solid, data earned under fatigue, not predicted, from a short burst of speed. Then came the adjustment. I took that half marathon pace and added roughly 15 to 20 seconds per kilometer. Not because it sounded conservative, but because physiologically, the marathon demands slightly lower intensity to preserve fuel and resist breakdown. When I calculated the result, it was slower than the number I once claimed as mine. It didn't feel glamorous, but it felt real. But a projected pace from a half marathon is still a hypothesis, and I needed proof under marathon-specific fatigue. 3 weeks before race day, I designed what I now consider the most revealing workout of my training cycle. 30 kilometers total. The first portion is easy and controlled, letting fatigue accumulate naturally. Then the real test, a long, uninterrupted block at my proposed marathon pace. This wasn't about toughness, it was about observation. As I settled into that pace, I paid attention to 2 things. First, perception. Was the effort steady and sustainable, or was I subtly negotiating with discomfort? Second, and more importantly, my heart rate. Not the number itself, but its behavior. If the pace stayed constant and my heart rate remained stable, that meant my aerobic system was in control. But if my heart rate began to drift upward while the pace didn't change, that was cardiac decoupling, Larses. A quiet signal that I was relying too heavily on glycogen, that the cost of that pace was rising minute by minute. The first time I ran this workout, honestly, I saw the drift. It wasn't dramatic, but it was undeniable. And in that moment, staring at my watch mid-run, I understood that my body was telling me the truth long before race day ever could. Seeing that drift forced me to confront something far less technical and far more personal. The real battle was never about oxygen or lactate. It was about ego. There's a quiet identity wrapped around a marathon time. We attach meaning to it, discipline, talent worth. And when the data suggests a slower pace than the one we've been announcing to friends or posting online, it feels like a demotion. I had to ask myself a hard question. Do I want to look fast, or do I want to run well? Ego loves round numbers. It loves the clean symmetry of a sub-4 finish. But physiology doesn't care about clean numbers. It only responds to stress, adaptation, and limits. When I finally chose to trust the data over my pride, something shifted. I felt less anxious in training, less desperate to prove something. Accuracy replaced bravado. And strangely, that felt stronger. Once I let accuracy take the lead, my entire definition of marathon pace began to change. I stopped seeing it as a target hanging out in the distance and started seeing it as a reflection of who I was on that specific day, Vio. Pace wasn't something I could declare months in advance and then chases. It was the visible result of invisible processes, miles accumulated, thresholds raised, efficiency refined, recovery respected. It became less about ambition and more about alignment. When training went well, when my aerobic base deepened and my durability improved, the pace revealed itself naturally in workouts. I didn't have to force it. I didn't have to convince myself it was possible. It simply showed up. That realization was liberating. My job wasn't to cling to a dream number. My job was to build the physiology capable of expressing it. And when that foundation is real, the marathon stops feeling like a gamble and starts feeling like an execution. And that shift in mindset brought me back to the place where this all started, the starting line. Now, when I stand there waiting for the gun, I'm not clinging to a fantasy I'm not bargaining with. Hope, I'm calm. Because the number on my watch isn't a wish, it's a conclusion. I've tested it. I've seen how my heart responds. I've watched how my body behaves under fatigue. The pace I line up with isn't the one that sounds impressive. It's the one my physiology has already proven it can sustain. If you've ever walked the final miles of a marathon wondering what went wrong, maybe it wasn't your toughness. Maybe it was misalignment between desire and data. You don't need more belief. You need better evidence. Stop choosing your pace because it inspires you. Start uncovering it because your body confirms it. That's when racing stops being a gamble and starts becoming honest. In the end, the marathon exposed something far bigger than pacing strategy. It revealed how easy it is to build goals around identity instead of evidence. I thought I needed more grit, more belief, more intensity. What I actually needed was alignment between ambition and physiology, between desire and reality. When I stopped forcing outcomes and started respecting feedback, everything improved. My training became smarter, my racing became steadier, and most importantly, I stopped measuring my worth by a fantasy number and started measuring progress by honest data. The deeper lesson goes beyond running. In life, we often choose goals based on what sounds impressive rather than what aligns with our current capacity. Whether it's career, fitness, or personal growth, the principle is the same. Build the foundation first, test honestly, adjust without ego, then execute with confidence. Ambition is powerful, but only when it's supported by preparation. Let me ask you something simple. Have you ever chased a goal that sounded right, but didn't truly match where you were at the time? I genuinely love to hear your experience, so share your thoughts in the comments below so we can all learn from each other and Serpanis. And if this perspective helped you see your training or your goals differently, subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps this conversation going and helps me create deeper, more practical content for you.